marijuana use as a crime has not worked. I have reviewed the language of Measure 91, and it's very well written. I think it's a good bill.
Measure 91 regulates marijuana for adults, so police have time to fight serious, violent, and unsolved crime.
And here in Washington, wasteful arrests down, DUIs down, drug prevention programs are getting funds. Strict regulations are working. Here, it's really better, already. Vote yes on 9.
Now it's time for Toker Talk Radio, the voice of the marijuana nation.
What are you people? On dope?
Where you can toke.
I inhaled frequently.
Or you can talk.
I experimented with marijuana and didn't inhale.
Or you can toke and talk.
10 federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
While we talk about toke on Toker Talk Radio.
So, by the way, when it comes to pot, you know, if you're 40 years old, you live in a log cabin in Oregon, you got 12 giant pot plants in your backyard, have a ball.
Live from beautiful Portland, Oregon at Rolla J Studios.
Hey, this is great. Just not cannabis.
Plus your calls live at 971-533-7111.
They're walking on their pants with their cap on backwards, listening to Enema Man and Snoopy Poop Dog.
What's to keep somebody from getting all potted up on weed and then getting behind the wheel? Gateway theory doesn't work. It's a reality.
Holland, is it real? Don't tease me.
We're locking up people that take a couple of puffs of marijuana, and the next thing you know, they got 10 years.
And now, here's your host, the guru of ganja graphics, the sultan of sativa statistics, and the worst nightmare of a reefer mad prohibitionist. A polite, perspicacious, productive pothead with a propensity for PowerPoint. Radical Russ Belville.
Marijuana.
Well, I guess he didn't like you after all. He just smelled your narcotics. Book 'em, boys.
Hold on, Chief. It might be medicinal.
Oh, yeah, medicinal. Without it, I could go even blinder, right? Arch, she's gonna narc on our stash.
We don't have a stash.
No, of course not.
I smelled some marijuana smoke in Vietnam!
I can't believe I'm riding around in Cheech's van. The van made of weed.
It's not made of weed.
Oh, what's it made of? Hash? Shrooms? Lysergic acid diethylamide?
No, the van is just made of van.
Oh.
Welcome back, everybody. Toker Talk Radio, 3 after the hour here in beautiful Portland, Oregon, and I am in my Homer Simpson costume. For those of you who are just listening, that's why we're playing all the Simpsons clips. Once again, another last-minute costume on my part. Last night, didn't have any idea what I would do. Just like last year, I had no idea what I would do last year, and then I came up with this inspired Pinhead costume. If you check some of my photo galleries from last year, you'll see my Pinhead from Hellraiser costume. And this year, I decided to go with Homer Simpson. And in doing so, it was interesting because I live in this area of Portland off of Sandy Boulevard where there's like 3 barber shops within walking distance. I mean, like old school red and white candy cane pole barber shops. Old dude hanging out reading newspaper barber shops, right? Not a one of those barber shops would shave my head. What happened to America? I always thought the difference between a barber and a hairdresser was that a barber could shave you. What does this country come to? Anyway, glad to have you here. We got all sorts of stuff coming up here on Toker Talk Radio. After the next break, we're going to do a little bit of ranting, a little bit of debunking from a K2 Investigators piece. Now, K2 is another Sinclair-owned station, and this piece is entitled Cannabis in the Classroom, Superintendent Tells of Problems Faced by Educators. And it's by Anna Canzano. For those of you in the local Portland media market, you'll know Anna Canzano used to be Anna Song, got married to the sports guy John Canzano, so she's Anna Canzano now. She was the one who did the big expose on medical marijuana, showing how easy it was for her to get a medical marijuana card, thanks to the fact that she had scoliosis and had been in 3 car accidents. she was trying to point this big expose of how easy it was to get a medical marijuana card when she clearly qualified for a medical marijuana card. So she's always been kind of on the anti-marijuana side, trying to get a big scoop. But I do have to applaud the fact that at least they included rebuttal, right? In the KTVL piece, it was on Thursday or Wednesday, whatever day it was on. They didn't even have rebuttal. They just let the cops and the DAs spread their reefer madness without any sort of response from the Measure 91 campaign or from anyone who supports it. This piece, while it opens with the, what about the children angle? Oh my God, we legalize marijuana. Oh my God. At least it gets a measured response from Dr. Amanda Ryman, who's someone who knows this stuff pretty well. So bring that up in the next segment. And as we move on, we're going to take a look also a little deeper into that new poll for Measure 91, showing us with a 52-41 lead. And that's got us feeling pretty good. We're also going to talk about Florida. The polls in Florida are not looking so good for the passage of the Florida Medical Marijuana Amendment. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. We'll also take your questions via the chat room, or you can call us live at 971-533-7111. And another piece we're going to talk about as well, a survey on chronic pain. Our opponents, whenever we talk about medical marijuana, they always like to say, well, 90% of the people that are getting medical marijuana are getting it for pain, right? And they're trying to, pretend like people are just faking it. They're just faking it. They're just using it for pain. Well, there's a new study out on pain, a new survey that we'll talk about also on today's show that shows exactly why those numbers are not to be disbelieved, that there really is an epidemic of pain in this country. And finally, we've got a report on the corruption endemic to the drug war coming out of Houston, Texas, where hundreds of people were falsely convicted of drug possession offenses thanks to some shenanigans at the drug lab. So we'll talk about that coming up on the show as well. You're listening to Toker Talk Radio. We are the voice of the Marijuana Nation. Make sure you join us on election night, Tuesday, November 4th, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time for our live coverage of Marijuana Election 2014. We've got folks in all the states, cities, and counties that will be reporting with us live. We'll have expert analysis from NORML, Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, Drug Policy Alliance, and Marijuana Policy Project. We start at 3 Pacific and we don't quit until the polls are closed in Alaska. Join us on Tuesday.
America's R7 secret agent of progressive change.
The name's Belville. Russ Belville.
This is the Russ Belville Show.
Goldfinger. Hide the dope.
We don't have any dope.
Then what did I just smoke?
Look, I'm really starting to worry. There's half-eaten cupcakes everywhere. We're all out of paper clips. And the curtains smell like dew.
Oh, yeah? Well, I got news for you. I just got promoted, and it's all thanks to Yes, Cannabis.
All right, we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with the TuneIn Radio app for all mobile platforms. Go to rad-r.us/420tunein or just click the TuneIn Radio icon below the live radio feed on.
I'm Paul Steigletter. I spent 30 years in law enforcement, beat cop to deputy sheriff, working 10 hours a day to protect and serve. Last year in Oregon, there were 13,000 citations and arrests for marijuana. Yes on 91 will allow law enforcement to focus on serious crimes, unsolved murders, rapes, missing kids. Measure 91 also mandates that Oregon develop standardized tests for driving under the influence, which we don't have now. That'll make our streets and highways safer. Yes on 91.
420radio.org is proud to replay Jorge Cervantes TV from Barcelona, Spain. Jorge Cervantes, the author of the best-selling books in marijuana horticulture, has dropped the disguises and brings you pro indoor and outdoor grow tips from the European masters. Catch the replays Thursday at 1 Pacific on 420.
In all my years on the streets, it's hard to recall a single time where marijuana use itself was the cause of a violent incident. As a police officer, I do believe that passing ballot measure 2 will allow law enforcement to focus on serious issues in Alaska. To me, the regulation of marijuana means safer communities. I'm voting yes on 2.
This communication was paid for by the Campaign to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. Top contributors are Marijuana Policy Project, Drug Policy Alliance, and Thomas.
Everybody wants to be somebody. Not everybody wants to make their way. I know some people that'll take their chances, riding on the wake of someone's wave. My television is reality graveyard, haunted by the ghosts of desperate dreams. I try to make it on guitar string budget. Highway to Hollywood is so obscene.
Welcome back, everyone. It is 10 after the hour, almost 11. Ballyhoo with the music there. That song is called Bootleggers. It's part of our Rockin' Friday Daily Toker Tunes library. You'll hear more of that music every Friday following the replays of our affiliate partner podcasts from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day, from 45 minutes after until the top of the hour. If you know of any independent unsigned groups who would like to get some exposure on 420 Radio, just let us know. You can contact us through the website or by email, russ@radicalruss.com. Also, stay tuned. We've got Herb Thrasher calling in a little bit later. He's going to bring us the all-time Cannabis Halloween classic, Monster Hash by The Toys, and we've got a video to go with it as well, so stay tuned for that. But for now, time to get started.
You can't handle the truth.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
You have offended my family.
Hey, this is great, man.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
I know nothing.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
We don't need no stinking budget.
Homosexuality, immorality general.
Down the centuries you have slurred the meaning of the words we, the people.
Be warned, this is not your mother's marijuana.
You could ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
All right, time for us to get into this rant, this new piece by Anna Canzano on our local ABC affiliate, KATU, K-A-T-U, or Channel 2 here in the Portland area. Let's take a look.
Classroom educators in Washington are warning about a big jump in marijuana-related incidents during the first month of school. The superintendent of the Edmonds School District, north of Seattle, says they've seen a 47% spike in marijuana use or possession compared to this time last year. A recreational marijuana use just became legal in Washington at the start of this year. And voters in Oregon are deciding on it right now with Measure 91. On Your Side, investigator Anna Canzano has an exclusive interview now with the one woman in Oregon who knows what schools here may be up against if pot goes legal.
Don't be a lab rat. It's the message behind this campaign just launched by the Colorado Governor's Office. Colorado, where pot became legal for recreational use at the beginning of last year. The ad warns teenagers scientists still don't know much about how marijuana affects developing brains.
It makes me sad because I think we're creating a new set of victims.
Dr. Heather Beck knows a thing or two about cannabis in the classroom.
I love kids, and I want them to have healthy lifestyles.
She's the new superintendent for Lake Oswego schools, and she came here from Colorado, where she saw firsthand the problems educators experienced after that state legalized recreational marijuana.
More students who had access to marijuana and were bringing it to school.
Here's the problem, Dr. Beck, is the statistics show that's not the case. The statistics show from the Colorado Healthy Kids Survey from 2009, the monthly use by teenagers was 24.8%. By 2013, the monthly use was down to 20%. This idea that they've gotten greater access doesn't work either, as their perception of the ease with which they can access marijuana has declined, and the numbers in Colorado are lower than the national average. What's happening here is observational bias. The fact, it's the old, I just bought a Subaru and now I notice all the Subarus around town. Marijuana has become legalized, and so now you're paying attention to the marijuana use that had already been there. Teenagers have already had access for years.
And so in the district that I was in, we saw about a 30% increase in the number of marijuana infractions by students.
Are we talking about high school students increasingly bringing pot to school, or even younger?
Students as early as 3rd and 4th grade are now getting charged and suspended for bringing marijuana to school.
In what form?
Well, the edibles are a serious concern because it looks, the way it's marketed, it looks a bit like candy or looks appealing.
Edibles have been a huge part of Oregon's pot debate.
And they're sneaking them into schools and they're using them, which is very concerning.
Mom groups in particular battling back and forth over products like THC-infused gummy bears.
We worry about how they're breathing.
Dr. George Sam Wong with the Children's Hospital Colorado just released one of the first studies trying to quantify the impact of legalized marijuana. From 2009 to 2011, his hospital ER saw 14 kids under 12 years old who had ingested it. After Colorado legalized marijuana, in the first 6 months alone, Dr. Wong tracked a dozen cases of kids ingesting it.
Here's the problem with any sort of statistics that you want to compare about prohibition to the lack of prohibition. If I'm a parent, say I'm a young parent, maybe I'm in my 20s, and I get myself some marijuana-infused gummy bears or cookies or something like that, right? When it's illegal and my kid gets into it, and I have a pretty good idea that the kid got into the marijuana, I'm not going to take that kid to the hospital because it's illegal. And I know that I can get my kid taken away from me for child endangerment charges or neglect or abuse. And CPS separates our family. Once marijuana is legal, a parent who has a kid who gets into the edibles can take that kid in, just as if the kid had gotten into the liquor cabinet, just as if the kid had eaten some prescription medicines that they shouldn't have gotten into. This fright and this scare that they're trying to perpetrate here on KATU is exactly who they wanted to go after. The No on Measure 91 campaign, of their $168,000 that they got, 98.6% of that from the Oregon sheriffs and the narcotics enforcement, $155,000 of that money went to these postcards that they mailed out to 155,000 moms in the Portland and Eugene area. They know that they've lost this battle amongst men. The most recent poll showed men's support for marijuana legalization in the state of Oregon at 56%. They know where they're targeting. They're targeting that age demographic between 30 and 45, that age demographic of people that have young children. They're targeting women because women's support is only at 49% for legalization, and the age demographic of the child rearing ages is split 46-46. So the Measure 91 opponents, if they were going to get an ad on television to do their most effective target, they would produce what Anna Canzano is producing here on KATU. They would produce an ad designed to frighten moms of school-aged children. Once again, we see another Sinclair station, KATU, doing the bidding of their right-wing corporate masters who want to see marijuana legalization fail. Let's let it continue.
2 of them ended up in the ICU. Kids as young as 8 months old got a hold of marijuana from babysitters, from grandparents, in the forms of cookies, cake, and candy.
A child's not going to know the difference between an edible product without marijuana and an edible product with marijuana.
The data from Colorado is still scarce since marijuana only became legal at the start of last year. But nearly 1 in 10 boys under the age of 13 in Colorado have used marijuana. That's 15% higher than kids the same age across the rest of the country. This is according to the Colorado Department of...
Thank you, Anna, for my next drug war data mining. We're going to take a look at what those numbers were before Colorado legalized marijuana.
Health.
It's heartbreaking.
Dr. Beck says if marijuana becomes legal here, Schools should start educating kids early about the dangers of marijuana use and what we still don't know.
See, there's a surprising attitude. Well, once it becomes legal, maybe we ought to teach the kids about it. That's been part of the problem. That's been part of the problem is you guys are unwilling to have a rational discussion about this.
All we want to do is pump you up.
All right, we'll save the rest of this for after our next break. But coming up next, we've got Herb Thrasher calling in with the Halloween classic and a new video for it, Monster Hash by the Toys. Stick around.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with the TuneIn Radio app for all mobile platforms. Go to rad-r.us/420tunein or just click the TuneIn Radio icon below the live radio feed on.
I'm Pete Tupmark. I spent 33 years in law enforcement, from deputy sheriff to sergeant, working 10 hours a day protecting Oregonians. Last year in Oregon, there were 13,000 citations and arrests for marijuana. That takes time. Time better spent solving murders, rape cases, finding missing children. The system is broken. Measure 91 regulates marijuana for adults, so police have time to fight serious, violent, and unsolved crimes. It's about time.
Drug treatment Dr. Ronald Schwartzler from the No on 91 campaign explains why to vote yes on Measure 91.
There is no adolescent treatment, by the way, in the state of Oregon. You cannot get your adolescent treated. You almost have to wait till they're 18. By then, the damage has been done.
Measure 91 devotes 25% of marijuana tax revenue to drug prevention, treatment, and mental health programs. Get the facts. Vote yes on 91. This advertisement produced by the Russ Belville Show and is not sponsored or endorsed by the Yes on Measure 91 campaign.
At the age of 10, I was diagnosed with bone tumors growing outwardly on most long bones of the body. I could tear a vein. Clot could break off, go to your heart, your brain, your lungs, and you're dead. Medical cannabis has saved my life. I was fortunate enough to become a federal patient, and I've not had a tumor new and develop since I was 21 years old, and I'm now 61 years old. What we need to be able to do is get other people off disability that aren't able to hold down a job because they're on different medications that give marginal results. On November 4th, Florida voters will have an opportunity to do the right thing, so please vote yes on Amendment.
Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Rockin' Friday, featuring rock, metal, and the hard edge of alternative country. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tune.
Welcome back, everyone. 23 after the hour, and sadly, no Herb Thrasher on the line. He always calls in from work, and perhaps he had some work that had to be done. But he brings to us a great old classic tune we play every Halloween here on 420 Radio. Monster Hash by the Toys. Great tune. You may also know the Toys from their hit song Smoke Two Joints. That was made popular by Sublime, but of course they're also known in the cannabis community for this great tune, and also Hey Uncle Sam, Leave Us Pot Smokers Alone. Great music from the Toys, great group. You can find this album and this song on iTunes and Amazon. Here it is, the old classic, Monster Hash. Have a happy Halloween, everyone.
I was working in the lab late one night when I heard the gurgle of a water pipe. So I turned to see my monster in a cloud of smoke, who said, "This shit ain't bad. Here, have a toke."
We smoked some hash.
We smoked some monster hash.
Some monster hash.
It was his personal stash.
We smoked some hash.
We got completely trashed.
On monster hash.
We smoked some monster hash as we partied in the castle with the living dead. Mouths were dry and eyes were red. The ghouls and goblins shrieked and screamed. Won't somebody please pass the Visine?
They smoked some hash.
They smoked some monster hash.
Some monster hash.
From Frankie's personal stash.
We smoked some hash.
And they all were smashed.
On monster hash.
They smoked some monster hash. The mummy was toking on a ball.
Take a toke.
Wolfman said, don't bogart that, pass it along. The swamp thing was toasted, rolling on the floor, laughing hysterically and pleading for more. The scene was rocking as the werewolves moved to the undead reggae band's dance hall grooves. Meanwhile in the kitchen, Frankenstein baked some Alice B. Toklas brownies and cakes.
We ate some hash.
We ate some monster hash.
Some monster hash.
It had the graveyard smash.
We ate some hash.
And we all got
On monster
trashed.
hash.
We ate some monster hash. The party would have gone on till we all passed out. But just then we heard a blood-curdling shout. Watch out! Beware! Cover your necks! Dracula's got the munchies and he's totally wrecked.
He smoked some hash.
He smoked some monster hash.
Some monster hash.
He was completely
He
smashed.
smoked some hash.
That Transylvanian's
On
trash.
monster hash.
He smoked some monster hash. Now every night the dead rise up from the grave to partake in a happening THC rave. For you, the living, this hash was meant to. When you get to my door, just say the toys sent you.
We smoked some hash.
We'll smoke some monster
Some
hash.
monster hash.
And we'll all get
We
trashed
smoked some hash.
from my personal
On
stash.
monster hash.
We'll smoke some monster hash.
Monster hash.
Easy boy, save some for daddy. This is good.
You can get 420 Radio on the go with the Ustream video app for Android and iPhone. Go to rad-r.us/420Ustream or just click the Ustream app icon for Android or iPhone below the live radio feed at 420.
Mike Schwab is a former middle school science and math teacher. Currently, he works with children daily as an after-school program leader.
Currently, kids have easy access to marijuana with little understanding of its impact. We can take better care of our kids through Measure 91 with strict regulations and funding for proven marijuana education and prevention programs to keep kids from using it. Under our current marijuana laws, one mistake can ruin a life. Measure 91 removes unfairly harsh punishment for marijuana offenses and gets more tax money to local police and drug prevention. Vote yes on 91.
Electric Bob's Boogaloo, the best in electronic dance and experimental music, every Tuesday at 5 and 8 Pacific on 420radio.org. The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. If you're detained or arrested, treat law enforcement with respect and stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all of my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak with my attorney." Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web.
Oh, you gonna take me home tonight? Oh, down beside that red firelight. Oh, you gonna let it all hang out? Fat bottom girls, you make the rockin' world go round.
All right, everybody, 29 after the hour. Happy Halloween here from Rolla J Studios in beautiful Portland, Oregon. Glad to have you here. That is Queen with Fat Bottom Girls. It doesn't get any better than that. So glad to have you here. We're going to continue on with our radical rant. We were looking at the Anna Canzano piece that they are doing. Basically, another 5-minute ad brought to you by the Sinclair Broadcasting Group to fight against Measure 91 as it's poised to pass on Election Day. We rejoin our rant subject already in progress.
She says just like with alcohol or prescription drugs, The grown-ups need to watch out for the kids and consider how much easier it will be for them to get their hands on marijuana once it's more widely accessible.
Just heartbreaking.
See, I don't understand that line of reasoning. Every bit of that fear is based on the idea that what we're doing now is somehow working, that the kids now don't have easy access. The Oregon youth surveys have shown that the youth access to marijuana, kids saying it's easy or fairly easy to get marijuana, has never been below 70%. Never. And that rate of how easy they have found it to get marijuana used to be in the 80% range. And then we passed medical marijuana and it's declined. It's actually gone down for the kids since we've had more readily accessible medical marijuana. This assumption that somehow kids have easier access to marijuana when it's legal just has not been shown to be the case. Numerous studies have shown that the states that have liberalized their marijuana policies have not seen marked increases in youth use. They're cherry picking the stats and they're pretending like what they're doing now is working. Right now, 44% of kids know the drug dealer at school, and 91% of the time marijuana is on the menu. And the reason for that is because it's extremely profitable and unregulated. In a licensed Measure 91 store is never going to sell to a kid. Now, this concern about, it'll be more accessible to the adults and then the kids can get at it, is the same concern, like they said, we have about alcohol or prescription pills. Yes, indeed, people need to be responsible parents and keep these things locked up and away from the kids. But any increase we see in the reporting of kids getting access to this, again, is confounded by the fact that now that it's legal, people are going to be willing to come forward with that. So this is all just another slam against Measure 91. We're 3 minutes and 46 seconds into this thing without a rebuttal from the yes side.
Okay. Dr. Beck warns it's not just a mistake in judgment. The consequence can be a misdemeanor or a felony for anyone under 21.
I worry a lot about our youth becoming the new victims of marijuana. It makes me sad. You can say victim or you can say criminal because these kids are going to get charged.
A teachable...
Well, yeah, that's the point. They'll get charged now, too. Kids that have possession of marijuana will get charged. It doesn't change under legalization. This idea that you want to save them from a life of crime up until age 21, but then after 21, well, let's go ahead and ruin their lives, makes no sense to me.
Moment with cannabis in the classroom.
People in favor of Measure 91 point to data from Colorado showing that teen marijuana use has actually dropped by 2% since the state legalized it. The Colorado's Department of Health says that's not statistically significant, but supporters of legalization say the mere fact that teen use didn't spike shows that opponents' scare tactics were wrong.
All right. Okay. So a little bit of balance there at the end. Let's see. 4 minutes and 17 seconds of anti rebutted by 20 seconds of a pro. Okay.
What do they say about the spike in kids getting suspended for bringing pot to school or those going to the ER because of the pot-laced food?
Well, they believe that's not necessarily because more kids are bringing it to school or that more kids are ingesting it. The academic expert I spoke with believes that it may simply be more teachers are investigating it. It's more part of the conversation now. And as far as kids going to the ER, more parents may be willing to bring their kids in and get medical attention because the marijuana is legal. The stigma is not so great.
Very, very interesting.
All right, all right. A little bit better, a little bit better on the balance there. We'll accept that. Not so bad, but again, 4 minutes for the scare and 1 minute with no visuals to be the rebuttal. Little better than what they did down there in Southern Oregon, and maybe because they're here in Portland, they knew they had to be a little bit more careful trying to spread the reefer madness. Here is also included on the KATU site the interview with Dr. Amanda Ryman from UC Berkeley, where Anna Canzano was getting some of that information. Play that for you here. on the increased marijuana incidence in schools. I love these silent
So I
intros.
would say that doesn't necessarily mean that more kids are bringing pot to school. What it means is more people are getting in trouble for it. So one thing you have when you have a change in policy that goes from prohibition to regulation is you have increased levels of detection. Right? People are asking about it more. Teachers are looking for it more because there is an assumption that now that it's legal, it's going to become more on the forefront of people's conversations and people's culture. So, you know, when we see things like, oh, more kids are being suspended for it, that doesn't necessarily mean more kids are bringing it. It means that teachers may be investigating it more. They may be reporting it more. And so I think it's really important to make a differentiation between actual increases in behavior and just an increase in the detection of the behavior.
On the increased marijuana ingestion cases involving kids.
As long as there's been marijuana, there has been accidental ingestion of marijuana. The difference is that when it was illegal, parents or loved ones probably didn't feel comfortable seeking out medical attention in those cases because of the punishments associated with marijuana use. You know, now parents, because the stigma has gone down, parents and loved ones feel more comfortable seeking out medical attention in the case of accidental ingestion. So again, I don't think it necessarily speaks to more kids accidentally ingesting. It speaks to the stigma being reduced so more parents feel comfortable seeking medical attention in those cases.
On marijuana prevention and education.
And one of the things we get with Measure 91 that we don't get with the current system is the ability to fund and support those education programs, those prevention programs. So if we're really interested in keeping marijuana out of the hands of young people, which we absolutely are, we want to go to methods that have been tested and proven effective through research, which is prevention and education, and not ones that are reactive and punitive, which we have seen time and time again have had no effect on people's use of marijuana and of people's access to marijuana.
Dr. Amanda Reinman from UC Berkeley. She's also with Drug Policy Alliance and also a contributor to the show in certain ways. We've used a lot of her research here on the show. So big thanks to her for making her way to Oregon and providing a reasoned voice. Unfortunately, that part doesn't get shown on the KATU station. It's only on there online, but hey, it's better, like I said, better than what we got in Southern Oregon. So I got to count your blessings, I suppose. In another story that I wanted to get to, this one speaks to our opponents who are always going off about medical marijuana being for pain. 90% of the people are just getting it for chronic pain, just for pain. As if that's no big deal. As if it's something, you could just take a Tylenol and walk it off. It'd be fine. So here's a story coming out of Health Day News explaining that almost 1/5 of Americans do daily battle with crippling chronic pain, with elderly and women struggling the most. This was a poll of 35,000 American households and gives us an idea of what's going on in America with respect to pain. There is significant and debilitating pain that endures for 3 months or more in the lives of an estimated 39 million Americans. Significant and debilitating pain that endures for 3 months or more is common for 39 million Americans. Now, we've seen this with respect to how much painkillers that we use. We use 80% of the world's opioid supply and 99% of the world's hydrocodone supply. 5% of the world's population is consuming 80% of the world's opioids. Wow. Either we're in a bunch of severe, severe pain, or the rest of the world is toughing it out better than we are. I'd say it's a combination of the two. I think that in this country, we have the shortest vacations and the longest work hours and the most adverse healthcare outcomes and so forth. That just living in America can be a stressful existence if you're poor. And that stress can lead to pain. And the type of work people have to do, be it manual hard labor or retail work where you're standing all day, all sorts of different ways that can lead to chronic pain. Some more of these stats. It was 19% of the adults polled were deemed to have experienced chronic and severe daily pain. That grouping did not include adults who said they struggled with arthritis or back and joint pain, as those people tended to say their pain was not constant and persistent. So we're not even talking about the backaches. We're not even talking about the sore elbows and the sore knees and people with arthritis. Add those people into the mix, so we got even more pain in this country. More than 1 out of 5. And among those with the chronic pain, the 39 million Americans, more than 2/3 of them said their pain was constantly present, and more than half said their pain was at times unbearable and excruciating pain. Unbearable and excruciating. We're overusing opioids. People are becoming addicted to them. We're seeing an overdose epidemic on prescription painkillers and heroin in this country when people can't afford the prescription painkillers. We've got millions of Americans living with daily, severe, excruciating, debilitating pain. And the American Academy of Pain Management's Bob Twillman, he's the director of policy and advocacy, says, quote, "Those medications are wonderful when they work, but on average, they only relieve about 1/3 or less of the chronic pain people experience and may be completely ineffective in treating some other kinds of chronic pain. Also, the drugs don't do anything to tackle the emotional and mental and behavioral aspects of pain management," he added. If only we had some sort of medicine for pain management that was less addictive and far less addictive than the opioids, had none of the awful side effects of the opioids, and while it was successfully reducing the types of pain the opioids can't touch, like neuropathic pain, while it was doing that, was also addressing the emotional and mental and behavioral aspects. Gosh, if only we had some kind of medicine that would fit that bill. What a great world this would be.
Don't touch that dial. We're right back to Radical Russ in just a few minutes. Hey, does anybody really have a dial anymore? You're listening to the Russ Belville Show.
But isn't marijuana or dope illegal? Only for those who enjoy it. Medical use of marijuana is legal in this state.
Yeah, we've got the medicine that will help the people with chronic pain, the 39 million of them, that will also help their emotional and mental state. But, what about the children, right? Well, what about the roads, right? Can't be helping people with pain. Well, let them take pills.
.420 Radio is 24-hour marijuana legalization radio. At Royal Queen Seeds, we've got premium feminized cannabis seeds, including auto-flowering varieties for the medical cannabis user. We've got bulk shipments available and new CBD oil. Plus, we accept payment in Visa, MasterCard, and Bitcoin, as well as other methods. Check out our website at royalqueenseeds.com for more information. We are located in the Netherlands, and we have online grow experts ready to help you now at Royal Queen.
Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rogers thinks it's okay for medical marijuana patients like Larry Harvey to go to prison and lose their constitutional rights, even though Washington has had a medical marijuana law protecting patients like Larry since 1998. On May 30th, Congresswoman McMorris Rogers voted against an amendment that would protect Washington patients.
I voted to send Kathy McMorris Rogers to Congress, and she voted to send me to prison.
Is the Congresswoman out of touch with Washington?
New Approach Oregon is a coalition of Oregon citizens who believe that treating marijuana use as a crime has failed, costing taxpayers millions in law enforcement resources. Our approach will regulate, tax, and legalize marijuana for adults in Oregon. We can move Oregon forward and create new revenue for critical services. Visit our website at newapproachoregon.com or our page on Facebook at New.
I know if you're like me, you've always wanted to see Homer Simpson bang his head. Welcome back, everybody. Toker Talk Radio. We're hanging out here in Rolla J Studios, getting ready for the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour. I just got an email from Herb. He tried to call in, but there was something funky on his cell phone. But yeah, he will be here for the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour special Halloween edition tonight. We'll have some great metal, great rock and roll for you to listen to. So check that out, 8 o'clock Pacific time. And stay tuned for the next hour, our 5 p.m. hour. Last week's Herb Thrasher episode is on, and we're really proud of this episode because we had an interview with oh God, what the guy's name? Oh, just totally slipped my mind. Lombardo, Dave Lombardo from Film, the band Film. He was also the founding drummer in Slayer. We had a great interview with him, and there was one particular topic we talked about, which was the super fast thrash metal, the bass drum, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And we got a great quote from him about the authenticity of human drummers versus triggers. And that quote and the interview from the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour got picked up on blabbermouth.net. Blabbermouth.net is apparently very popular metal news source on the internet. So big coup for Herb Thrasher. He does a lot of hard work trying to get these musicians on the show, and that's going to be a regular feature of the Flower Hour from now on. Is we'll have an extended interview with someone, a record producer, a musician, someone in the music community on the Herb Thrasher Flower Hour on the first hour, and in the second hour we're going to have Thrasher News segment where we just kind of shoot the breeze about what's going on in the news, kind of take it casual and talk about it, you know, on a layman's terms kind of basis. So check that out. Herb Thrasher Flower Hour tonight, 8 p.m. Pacific time. All right. Want to get to this last story for the day that was very disturbing to me. And it's out of the Houston Press, one of the independent, you know, kind of like weekly news blog kind of things, right? And the title of it is Lab Reports Show Hundreds Convicted in Error for Drug Offenses. In recent months, the Harris County District Attorney's Office has sent out hundreds of notices to defendants convicted of drug offenses, telling them that forensic lab reports show they were convicted in error. The letters, which were sent between July and September of this year, show hundreds of defendants who took plea deals for misdemeanor and felony drug possession charges were later cleared when evidence tested by a Houston Police Department crime lab analyst came up negative for a controlled substance. Court records show that while prosecutors were notified several years ago that those tests came back negative, defendants weren't told until months ago. In some cases, the Houston Police Department crime lab notified the district attorney's office that there was no evidence of a controlled substance before a defendant even took a plea deal. Check this example out. There was a man who was charged on September 25th, 2008 for possessing less than a gram of cocaine, a felony. Personal amount of cocaine, a felony. Records indicate the crime lab analyst sent prosecutors a letter on October 21st saying there was no evidence of a controlled substance. Still, the district attorney's office struck a plea deal with the man on October 26, 2008, 1 year in county jail. So 5 days after getting the letter saying there's no evidence that this person was possessing less than a gram of cocaine, the DA's office ignored that, did not bring that to light. The defense did not know. The defendant did not know that there was no evidence. So thinking there was evidence against them takes a plea deal for a year in jail. The DA's office did eventually send a letter to the defendant on August 5th, 2014, informing him that he had been convicted in error. Whoops! Sorry. 6 years ago, we put you in jail for a year on no evidence whatsoever. Sorry. Oops. How much was that man's life inexorably changed from that moment in 2008 when he's convicted of a felony? For the next 6 years, he's having to go about trying to find housing, trying to get student loans, trying to get a job, having to tell people he's a convicted drug felon on no evidence that he had no idea. Oh my God. And we're talking about hundreds that they're talking about in this case. Now, meanwhile, the public defender's office says it's still scrambling to handle the influx of defendants trying to clear their records. An assistant public defender said, quote, obviously, if it's a person's only felony offense, there are very significant collateral consequences. It could have changed the trajectory of someone's life, end quote. For instance, even a misdemeanor marijuana conviction can have life-altering ripple effects. Defendants could have been denied student loans. Quote, there could have been job consequences, Hughes said. What if someone had been an educator or something like that? Even a whiff of that could end someone's career, end quote. This is just another example of the corruption of the drug war, just endemic to the drug war. It's bound to happen. It's become a numbers game. We've talked to our friends at Leap about this, how it's no longer about, is the public demonstrably safer? It's about how many arrests did we make? How many convictions did we get? And oftentimes in these cases, we're talking about lower income, poor white and minority people, largely minority people, who don't have the means or the knowledge to fight back against these cases, who think that the plea deal is the best deal they're going to get, who don't have the opportunity to hire competent defense. They're already starting behind the 8 ball. They already are behind everyone else as it is. And then to add to that, this misfeasance from the drug labs and the DAs. Talk about the deck being stacked against you for something that shouldn't even be a crime. I know sometimes when I talk about this stuff, there's some people in the marijuana movement that are, well, it was cocaine, it was meth, it was heroin, it was, like as if they're any worse or better than marijuana. Folks, we need to be careful to not become drug bigots ourselves. There are responsible users of every drug, even heroin, even meth. There are people that use these drugs as adults, don't harm anyone else, don't risk anyone else, and they deserve just as much respect as anybody who's using cannabis. It doesn't matter what drug is being used. It's the right of a person to use it so long as they do not harm others. So these people that were unjustly convicted of cocaine or meth or heroin, they deserve just as much to have their records exonerated, expunged. They deserve just as much sympathy as anybody who got caught for weed for this. And to be fair, it's much more likely that the people convicted wrongly, where the drug tests showed that wasn't any evidence of an illegal substance, is more likely that it wasn't weed. Weed's pretty bulky and identifiable, generally speaking. So when I hear cases like this, it's bad enough that we're arresting people for a victimless crime, something they do to themselves. We arrest them for their own bodily sovereignty. We arrest them for their unpopular choice of drug. We're not anti-drug in this country. We're saturated in drugs. Did you hear that earlier? 80% of the world's hydrocodone, 80% of the world's opioids, and 99% of the world's Vicodins, hydrocodones. We're awash in drugs in this country. But it's a pharmacological apartheid that we live under. These drugs over here, manufactured by corporations that make white people rich, those are the good drugs. These drugs over here that grow in more southern latitudes and benefit brown people's economies, bad drugs. Bad drugs. Oxycodone, hydrocodone, great. We can make that. Opium, heroin, oh my God, that comes from Afghanistan. That comes from Mexico. That comes from, those people. Cocaine, same idea. Doesn't grow so good up here. Not a lot of American companies could make a buck on that. Marijuana, they could and does grow up here, but the problem is it's pretty easy to grow on a small scale. Kind of undercuts the need for that middleman somewhat. Although they're starting to get around. the companies are starting to come around to this. I think, Keith Strop often said that, one of our strategies is we're just going to have to outlive some old bastards. And we are. We're outliving them. And the younger generation that comes up has been raised. You got to understand that a kid that will graduate high school this May, his entire life or her entire life, medical marijuana has been a reality. Think about that. This class graduating, the class of 2015, will have lived their entire life with California having medical marijuana and state by state falling to medical marijuana after that. They don't even understand why it's prohibited and see no need to have it continue. That recent poll for the KATU poll for Measure 91, for people aged 18 to 29, it was 71% support. That's pretty big numbers. Now, I wish more of those young people would vote. And in a state where it's vote by mail, they have no excuse not to. We shall see. I still predict good things. I think we're in good shape in Oregon. The 52-41 feels right to me, and I could see us ending up at 52-48 or better. I think Oregon's good. I think Washington, D.C. is a lock. I'd be surprised if Washington, D.C. comes in less than 60%. So come marijuana election night, I predict we'll have 2 victories to celebrate, Washington, D.C. and Oregon. I feel really good about those. I don't want to guarantee anything, but I feel really good about those. Alaska's a wobbler. I don't know where Alaska's going. I'd like to see it pass, but I would not be surprised for it not to pass. But I think however it ends up, it's going to be close. And then there's Florida. Man, how you could start off Florida with like 88% support for the generic question of support of medical marijuana, and now end up not even just below the 60% they need for the constitutional amendment, but possibly not even breaking a majority. That's a legit possibility that they don't even break 50% for medical marijuana in Florida. This Florida campaign may go down as the how not to run medical marijuana campaign from here on forward. 3 major problems with the campaign. Number 1 problem with medical marijuana campaign in Florida was choosing to go the route of the constitutional amendment. Now understand why they did it. Because it's Florida. And if it was just a statutory thing, then the legislature can change it, and we're talking Florida. So they'd have done all sorts of bad things to it. But you only need 50% for statutory. At least you could have got it passed and worked from there. By going constitutional amendment, you have to clear that 60% hurdle, and that's a little harder hurdle to clear. Number 2 mistake, adding that California clause. This is an East Coast medical marijuana, and while I am often against the East Coast medical marijuanas that don't have home grow and so forth, I understand why they don't. They want them to pass. So Florida not only didn't have home grow, but to add the California clause when no other medical marijuana state has since California was a huge mistake. That allowed the opponents to portray this as a trick, as a sham, as a opening the door for legalized marijuana, for California-style medical marijuana. And the number 3 mistake, ego. John Morgan so badly wants to get this passed, and God bless him, has put in millions of dollars to do it. But he made the campaign about himself. When there was time for a debate on this between the sheriff on the other side, did he call someone from LEAP who's a professional in doing these kind of debates and presenting against a law enforcement expert? No, they put John Morgan up. After John Morgan had already been caught in a video in a bar extolling the virtues of getting high to a shrieking audience and dropping F-bombs left and right that made it very easy for the opponents to make ads up saying, is this really about medical or is it about partying? John Morgan needed to step aside and keep it funded and let the professional messaging people handle this. So if there is a loss, and I hope there's not, but if there's a loss in Florida in medical marijuana, let's at least learn some lessons from it so Florida can try something in 2016. How Florida went forward with medical marijuana and didn't make Kathy Jordan and Irv Rosenfeld household names, I'll never understand. That's all the time we got. Stay tuned for Herb Thrasher Flower Hour replay. Coming up next, his interview with Dave Lombardo from Film. I'm Homer Simpson. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, take care of each other, tokers. Dope!
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
Oh, I failed as a parent. I swore the day my son was born he would appreciate stoner comedy.
Roll it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes.